Hello. So let's talk about how to make a ligature logo. I'm just going to show you a couple tips that you can use to make a ligature logo. First one, obviously, you can see here on the screen, I've got typed out my initials from my name to use as an example. And I just made them really big, and I made them so they touch with a font that's like kind of a script font that would look kind of flowy, just for this example here. So you can see how these overlap, but it's confusing, especially like right here where the V and the R overlap, and then there's still the stem of the R here, things like that that I might want to adjust or get rid of and make it look much more smooth and flow and the way the R comes through here. So let me show you a couple ideas. One, when you look in your layers here, you're going to see each layer should be a different sublayer within your first layer here. I'm going to call this my initials, right? And I am going to first thing do is after I've got this the size I want, I'm going to grab them all and I'm going to object either expand, or you can also say type create outlines. It really does the same thing. It turns them into a shape instead of a font. So you can no longer type with it after you do this step, but that is the first step in order to make them shapes. Now I can play with them because if you use your white arrow, you can see you've got all kinds of anchors. So that's the first thing. I could just come in here now and just click on an anchor and adjust things and play with the handles and move things around that way. So that's one way you can adjust once it's expanded. Another way is if I wanted to get rid of the stem here of this R, I could use just my eraser. So your eraser tool is not something I like to use very often, but in this case, it would be a good idea because what the eraser tool does is it can change your shape. You can see here that what it did with the egg there. So it doesn't really just like erase everything. That would be maybe just pushing delete. This is more like it adjusts your paths. So I'm going to use that eraser and I'm going to come in here. Now, the problem is if I was to erase like this, just go for it, it erases both my V and my R, which is not what I want. So I undid there. I just want to lock everything except for my R so that the only thing I'm erasing is my R. And I'm going to try to make that as smooth as possible along the top part. I'm going to have to go back in there and adjust that because that's not perfect, but it's a start. Now I'm going to go in with my white arrow and I'm going to go into that R layer, and you can see now it's separated it into two things within one layer. So now I'm going to take the stem of that R and just delete it. Now it's gone. And if I was to turn off my V and my W, you can zoom in here. You can see this R. It needs a little help. That eraser didn't do a perfect job, but now I can go in with my white arrow and I can see here some of these anchors that I don't need. I can just select them with my white arrow and just push delete, or I can go in with my pen tool. And remember from back when we did our very first thing, you can use your pen tool. If you push command, it turns into the white arrow. So then you can, play, but you can also, if something's not working for you and you don't have the handles you need, you can always pull two new handles out of an anchor by pushing Option. When you're on the pen tool here, you're going to get, when you push Option, you'll get this anchor point tool. And that anchor point tool pulls two brand new handles out of your anchor. So if you need new handles there, and then you can basically do what I just did, smooth that out. And some people like to just go right in and adjust the path itself, but I'm fine with just working with the anchors. Okay, so that's one way to do that. I'm going to turn everything back on. Another way I can do that, now that I have this R, I'm very tempted to pull these, pull this middle point here over. But if I look at that, I see I have 3 anchors there. So I got to be careful. I want to grab all 3 anchors and move them, because if I just grabbed one and moved it over, that would do like that, and that looks not so great. So you can grab all the anchors and move them over like that. Okay, here's another thing you can do. You can use the pencil tool, okay? So I'm going to use the pencil tool right here. And when you have a letter selected, that's the thing. It has to be selected. If you don't select it, like for example here, this W is not selected and I draw with my pencil tool on it, it doesn't do anything. So it has to be selected first. And then the next thing is, I'm going to do this on my V. So I'm going to select my V here, is double click on your pencil tool. And you can see it brings up your pencil tool options. And you want to pull your fidelity all the way over to smooth, and you want to say, pull edit selected paths within 20 pixels. Just pull that all the way over as well and say, okay. And then watch what happens if I was to come in here with my V and just go like this. You can adjust the shape of your letters. That one I did pretty bad job. There you go. And you can basically come in and add things to your letters. Now here, you see how it just automatically merged it. Here, it didn't as much, and so I would always go back in with your white arrow key, and if something like this happens over here, you might have to go in and clean it up a little bit to kind of make sure that it's a fully merged piece, because sometimes it will clip something. There we go. Now it's a fully merged piece. So that is another thing you can do to add to your piece. Think about balance, think about composition, and think about flow, and have fun while you're doing this. And yeah, enjoy.